Pay me like your French nun.
Oh my god. Welcome back to another episode of Can You Not? We are here today, as usual, with me, Joe. I do movie things. Amber.
I'm Amber. I'm an engineering major.
My name's Jesse. I just want some rest.
I think we all need some rest. It's one of those days. And we also officially launched the podcast now.
Woo!
So yay! And
Jesse's
I'm working
dancing.
on it. I've just started the opening steps of getting us on iTunes as well.
Woo!
That'll be exciting. I also want to give out a shout out to one of our newest fans. His name is Bob Johnson. He is an ardent fan of the podcast. And he is Amber's dad. And he's awesome. So thank you, Bob Johnson.
What?
Amber, do you have any kind words to say to OG Bob Johnson?
He sent me a tutorial for how to draw an ox. Maybe one of you guys should hop on that.
Yes.
Just like for reference, that is our official logo. That is in process.
Yeah, we have a 5-second YouTube tutorial for how to draw it. So if nobody else draws it, I'm gonna have to draw it. I don't think you want that. So
Nobody wants that. Hint, hint. Today we have some more great topics as usual. Who would like to go first? Oh wait, I need my timer.
Okay.
I'm gonna go last because I think mine's kind of a closer one. It feels like
Okay. I can kick it off.
okay.
In the last couple months, the news has really gone into a frenzy about the 14-year-old high school student who created the clock that was seen as an explosive device in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, he's gained a bunch of national recognition from the news, and a lot of people have been extending their hands to him, albeit educational institutions, Fortune 500 companies. Well, Ahmed Mohamed has now decided that he is going to take his talents to Qatar. So he will receive a full scholarship for a secondary and undergraduate education, and it's going to be in the city of Doha. And the great thing about this is the Young Innovator Scholarship he earned, it supports young exceptional Arabs by offering educational opportunities in Qatar. So I guess what I want to bring up is this. Is Ahmed's choice speak volumes for all the opportunities he's got, that either way he could not escape racism, that he chose Qatar because he felt most comfortable?
Was that the reason though? Did he say why he chose it?
I mean, he said he chose it because of the city and also because of the program, and that it's a full scholarship. But
that he chose that, like,
over a bunch of stuff. Like, I know Google offered him something. I know MIT really wanted him. I know Harvard wanted him. But yet he wanted to go to Qatar instead.
I think that's kind of interesting. Like, I almost see it as what it could have been, and I might just be reading into it too much, is a lot of, I feel like the companies that reached out to him and all the people who were like giving him things, a lot of that was for their own publicity. I feel like they just wanted to ride on what he already, like his publicity, like they just wanted to like be like, oh, we support him too, look at us, we're really inclusive, and without really anything to back it. So that he chose that instead of one of the other more famous, at least one of the more famous in America, options that he had, I think that's cool of him, because that's kind of speaking about him not being able to be taken by any of these bigger places that just want publicity from him and to claim, oh, he chose us. So I think that's pretty cool, actually, that he chose a place that he wanted to go to instead of a place that would look good or a place that was throwing stuff at him. So
Yeah. I think this is a little bit off topic, but I think the people who were getting so upset with him in the first place were, I mean, some of them were, of course, not very legitimate. You know, they're being very racist and stuff like that. And there are a few people who, I guess, were claiming that he just took something from Radio Shack and put it together or something like that. Like, they say, well, he didn't invent this, but like, the reason he got so much publicity And the reason that all these people are offering their hands too, I think, is because it's not about whether he is actually like this genius kid necessarily. It's about righting a wrong that was done to the poor kid. Like, you know, it's kind of about showing, it's a way of us saying, no, that wasn't okay how that was handled, you know, regardless of the specifics, that shouldn't have been handled like that. And this is our way of kind of saying that was wrong, you know? And so that's what I think a lot of people are failing to realize when they criticize him, regardless of whether he made the clock or whether he didn't make the clock or whatever. Like, it was about the fact that this kid was very wrongfully taken away and brought to, you know, it was an overreaction very much founded upon who he was.
But I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, does this 14-year-old boy's decision speak leaps and bounds upon the systematic racial undertones that minorities would have to go through even with these great opportunities? Is his decision basically telling us that, like, even with the opportunities that were given to him, he knows that at the end of the day, they don't really want him?
I think... I'm sorry, you can finish it.
I mean, many places have offered him great things, but yet he wanted to go to Qatar. And I find that so interesting. It's like, for instance, like when an African American or African Caribbean or an African decides to go to an HBCU instead of an Ivy League school. I think it's almost the same thing in a sense. And HBCUs do not have the resources to have great scholarships like that, but they choose to go to HBCUs instead because they want to be out of the system like that.
Especially since what got him the publicity in the first place was just this blatant and outrageous racism or like bias or what have you against him. Like, the only reason that he has this publicity and the only reason that the schools are offering him these things are because the news exploded because this kid had a clock and he got arrested. You know, so that makes sense too. It does seem like almost a direct reaction to that. They've wronged me because I'm a different color and I'm from a different place, so I'm going to go back to that place instead of supporting the system that did this to begin with.
And the people who are going to critique his decision, like, you can't say that he just, you know, flipped the bird at like all those opportunities that came up, because, you know, you saw him, he got to, you know, go to the White House, and he went to some of these colleges, and there's publicity photos of him meeting some, you know, so like, I think the people who would critique a decision like this, like, it's obvious that he's still appreciative and that he's still like, he still realizes how big some of those things were because he took advantage of some of them. It's just that for his long-term schooling, he's not going to choose it. So, and
it is kind of cool that there is such a reaction against how he was treated, and I do feel like there is merit in that in society today, at least, something like that got so much attention for the right reasons. But I do feel like a bunch of those companies and even the schools were just riding on the publicity, and like if a college could say, oh, this person graduated with us, that's more publicity for them. And I don't want to be a cynic and just say that everybody's doing it just for their own gains, but I do feel like that's definitely a big part of the things he was offered. So circling back around and going to, you said Qatar? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going there instead of going to one of these big schools that just want to wave his name flag around is a good response to that, in my opinion. But that's cool that he's like, is he from there? Do you know?
No, so he's of North Sudanese descent, I think.
Okay.
So he is Arab, and he is Muslim. I'm actually quite proud of this kid. You know what I mean? As a 14-year-old to decide, you know what? Why should I say yes to a country that clearly has an Islamophobia problem?
Right.
Why do I have to be here if I'm wanted everywhere else?
That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the ultimate decision.
And now he's almost handed the flag, the name flag, over to this other place that some people in America would probably
hate,
eye down. Yeah, just be completely against.
So strong in virtue and action,
and even if he didn't mean it to be, it's a really big statement.
It is
for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. It's a statement against the country. It's the United States. It's a statement against the corporate like onslaught that wanted to ride on its publicity. Yeah, that's really cool.
He's 14 years old. That's amazing.
Oh, and he still has to finish high school.
Yeah, no big deal.
But that's the thing. He's got his whole life out ahead of him now. And he's not going to that school anymore. I know he's going to a completely different school now.
Different high school?
Yeah.
Well, supposedly this program will pay for the last 2 years of his secondary school. So he'll go for his like junior and senior year and then do his undergrad there as well.
Oh, so he's going over there to finish high school?
I think so. They offered him a full kind of, it's a crazy scholarship.
Good for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say if he has, I don't know what year he is, but if he has more high school to go, my sophomore year of high school, I knew where I was gonna go to school too, you know, like, and I'd be interested to know if he stuck with his choice or ended up changing his mind because he had a different idea about what he wanted to do and found a different school that offered better programs. But
I didn't know where I wanted to go to college until like a month before I actually went to community college because there's so much decisions that were beyond my control.
We know my struggles. I had Amber. I had 10 schools on my list last year.
School.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was crazy.
And none of them were getting back to Jesse at all. They were being unresponsive.
Months and months.
Only Northwestern to be fair, but
okay.
Everywhere else was pretty prompt.
Oh.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine being a 14-year-old in like Harvard and all these Ivy League schools? You're like, we want you.
Yeah, because again, that would be a statement on their part in that case. Because then they would be saying, yeah, of course we took him in. We were the ones who handed him the big.
We're the least
ticket.
Racist.
That's a perfect way to end. Amber always kills it for me. It's always the best.
The Ambercisms.
Amber. Hashtag Ambercism.
Halloween Ambercist.
I'd be curious to see how many different spellings of that there could be. Because I could see like 15 different interpretations.
I don't even want to know. Okay, so I can start mine if you want.
Sounds like an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Okay.
The Ambercist.
It does.
Amber in the water.
The plot twist, it was Amber the whole time.
Why? In the news recently, I saw that I think it's the American Cancer Society recently rewrote a part of their book or whatever about how often women should be getting mammograms and like getting checked for breast cancer, and they actually reduced the number quite a bit. They upped the age from like 40 to 45 for when women should start getting regular mammograms, and after a certain age they say they should get them every 2 years instead of every 2 years instead of every year. And they also say that below a certain age women shouldn't get the lump tests, like just the feel your breasts to see if you feel any lumps, that kind of thing, because there's like rampant misdiagnosis. So they're kind of pulling back the amount of focus they have on test early because there's this overdiagnosis. And I feel like this idea of overdiagnosis is a thing that happens in a lot of different areas. I feel like a lot of people say that there's overdiagnosis of ADHD, people say that there's overdiagnosis of all kinds of things, and at least circling to mental disorders, like you see people all the time saying, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I have OCD, and I know on some level they're just kind of throwing the term around, but on another level I feel like they actually think that they have these things. So I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts were on this idea that people constantly think that there's something wrong with them. And I mean, even scientifically, medically, they are saying we are overdiagnosing right now. Stop looking so hard because you're going to find something if you keep looking so rampantly, and it might not even be worth treating.
Well, part of it's this intersection of not only overdiagnosis, I would say, but self-diagnosis. And the internet has made that so easy. You know, you go, oh gosh, I have a cramp on my back, I'm just a little bit sore, I should look that up. And then you see that like there's like 500 different things, and you go, oh gosh, I've been a little tired lately, my eyes are slightly baggy, and oh gosh, my toenails are a little long, I guess maybe I do have ovarian cancer. Like, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like it's so easy because people want to read into it so much. They want to, I don't think they necessarily want, part of them, I don't know, but maybe part of them does want to think because they're so determined about believing. It's like the people who, now there are a lot of people who do have genuine gluten allergies, but the percentage of people who
they have
say or think
celiacs.
they have, yeah,
they don't have a gluten allergy, they have celiac disease.
Right, celiac disease, which is a very important thing. But the amount of people who think they have a gluten allergy and make themselves believe. In fact, they've done things too where they've taken groups of people and they've done the whole studies where they give them the gluten and they think they have a reaction. Of course, if they put them in a little tiny encasing, like a little pill, and they don't taste it at all, like it's so much more accurate. The numbers go way far lower because once
the placebo effect.
Yeah, because once you get used to the taste, you get, of course, like the placebo effect. You start associating with it, and you think you have it.
On the flip side, because of this common belief that there's overdiagnosis, the ones that are truly sick and are trying to figure it out are silenced.
True.
I have been silenced throughout my whole process. I have a rare immune deficiency and they haven't figured it out yet. But for, I would say, the first 8 months, I had to fight through 2 doctors because they said that I was making up my own illness because of the common belief that everyone is diagnosing themselves. So it's a two-way street. I definitely think if people stopped going on WebMD and really started just going outside, drinking 8 glasses of water, eating an apple.
They said that the whole 8 to 9 glasses of water is kind of a myth thing too.
But still, like drinking water.
Drinking water.
Drinking water.
Stay hydrated and go outside sometimes.
Exactly, like do something. You know what I mean? Do something. Get off of Facebook. Get off of WebMD. But I have this problem where we look at every patient and undermine their self-awareness and their knowledge.
Doctors assume that patients can't judge.
Exactly. And I hate that so much right now.
Mm-hmm.
But like with all this self-diagnosis, it's hard not to blame them. I mean, it's hard to blame them sometimes, I guess. I can completely understand where you're coming from, but like, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I can see why it happens because of all these people who are like creating their own problems essentially.
And I know part of, I'm sorry.
No, that's
okay. I know part of the thing with ADHD at least is that everybody's saying, oh, this didn't even exist and now all of a sudden we're medicating all these kids, because there was actually an increase, I think it was in the late 1990s, in the amount of the number of prescriptions given to children for ADHD, but the fact that a lot of people overlook is that a lot of drugs to treat mental deviations or illnesses or what have you, they also saw an increase because they were just more available. And I think part of that was because there was more awareness of it, so people could properly diagnose people who wouldn't have otherwise been diagnosed at all. But it's just, it's interesting to see this occurring in something that isn't a mental illness, because mental illness is such a convoluted topic all on its own because we don't understand the brain and or how to treat it necessarily. I know there are lots of treatments that work really well for some things, but since we don't really know the mechanics of what we're dealing with, that can be really hard to work with. But like for breast cancer, they're saying like stop, like slow down. They're misdiagnosing enough people that they're telling them to stop checking for it, which is crazy to me.
Well, part of it I think with the ADHD thing was like, it's like that back in the day that wasn't really fully well understood or known, like you said. It's like it was like that kids will be kids mentality. Whereas, like, a lot of people forget how difficult it is to diagnose anybody with anything. Because you're essentially, it's not like you're just looking at the body and like, oh, this, and this, check marks everything, it's there. Like, it is an extremely difficult thing where you are making a lot of assumptions and you are doing a lot of things where you're saying, well, this and this are there, so probably this is there, which means probably, it's a much more complicated thing. People think it, like I said, it's such a simple, like, on and off switch sort of mentality.
I mean, the only thing I have to say is my problem is doctors look at it as almost everybody has similar symptoms, similar signs that lead to A to B to C. That's a problem for me as well. So the misconceptions of awareness, the misconceptions of their actual knowledge of our own bodies is a problem. And I do fully agree that self-diagnosis is a huge thing of recent that has just kept on going. I got thrown off. You guys killed me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You guys killed me. I don't know. I have nothing to say.
Well, I think it's interesting because you say that like bodies show the same signs for the same diseases. Like 2 different people who have the same disease will show the same symptoms. And that's definitely not true. I wrote a whole paper about this last semester. they found that men who are African American or Caribbean display depression symptoms that are different from white men, and it's just different, the way that they I guess express the issues that they're having mentally, whereas white men tend to feel sad a lot and do a lot of it internally and emotionally. Black men tend to feel a lot of the more physical symptoms, where they're tired all the time and it's harder to like move and actually get up, and their immune system starts shutting down. So this idea that bodies show the symptoms for the same disease in the same way is definitely entirely wrong. That's really valid. So if it functions on mental illness level, and if we can see physical things of overdiagnosis in something like breast cancer, I feel like there's definitely a crossover there.
Do you think part of the reason that it took so long for them to believe you was because your situation's so rare?
No. Actually, when I first started going to doctors, I was 19, and I was completely aware and was articulate for who I was. So
Articulate?
yeah, so I had to leave a couple doctors. And when you can request your records and stuff like that. Like in my bio, it'd be like a nice African American boy, and some of my stuff. So like, it's whatever. You move on. But I just think doctors truly are having a problem right now because they have a huge load of patients that they can't handle, because we don't have enough doctors in this country to begin with. So they're overwhelmed, they're not aware, they won't listen, and we have problems with people overdiagnosing themselves.
Yeah. This is kind of more of, less of a topic and more of kind of a question, I guess. So it's a little silly, but so I was just thinking about, how many times we build up hype for an idea, or for a person, for a movie, for a book, anything, and oftentimes it doesn't usually add up to what our expectations are. It's often, even if it was really great, like, it's still not quite what you expect in your mind or something like that. Like, no matter how good it might seem, it's going to almost let you down, almost always. But I was thinking, what are some things in my life and in your lives that actually do live up to the hype? Like, I think of, like, when I think of, like, sunsets. How many people have written like poems and songs about sunsets? And sunsets are really amazing. You look at a sunset and it's incredible. Jesse's laughing his butt off right now. But like, I just think it's that lives up to the hype. Like, you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's pretty amazing. I think sometimes just being in the presence of friends and not having any plans and just doing something, kind of like the podcast, but I'm saying just in general, just being with friends, and that lives up to the hype for me. When I think, oh man, I'm gonna hang out with these people today that I think are really cool, and then I do, and it's fun, and it's a good time, and it's something, and you think, gosh, these people are cool. So
could you restate the question?
So
I got lost.
What are some things in your life that have or continue to live up to the hype in your mind?
Kimchi, vegan tacos.
Kimchi!
Rogue Dead Guy Ale.
That spiced cider that one time.
Spice cider.
Spice cider is...
The apple pie beer cider thing I have in the fridge. That's pretty good. But like, on a real note, I guess it's hard. It's hard when you don't put that much attention to the things you love, that you kind of sometimes overlook the hype. Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, the new Star Wars movie is getting so much hype. Everyone's freaking out about it. They just shared the trailer today. Everyone's crying or excited for a multitude of reasons. I'm not really affected by the hype. Do I want to see it just because I would like to see it? Yeah, but it can't really disappoint me or make me happy. It's kind of one of those things that's like, I already kind of wanted to see it, and I'll take what I take from it. And that's the same when I listen to new albums as well. Like, if I like 9 out of the 12 songs, then that's okay, or 6 out of the 12. I didn't buy into the hype, I bought into the artist.
Yeah.
I
And you might have, I'm sorry.
No, we can reply.
I was just going to say, and it probably gives you a better experience with that because you went in not going crazy about it, and you probably often had a better experience in the end. But that's how I feel about the show Firefly, because I feel like as much as people want a second season, the hype level at this point would make it inevitably insanely disappointing, no matter how good it was. Yes.
So I haven't watched any of the new episodes of Heroes, but I heard they have disappointed everyone.
That doesn't surprise me.
And that had so much hype for the longest time, because after the writer's strike, that show got killed. It got killed, and it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those people that was really excited to see what was happening. But as you know, Joe, we have no cable. And could I watch it on NBC? I probably could, but I don't want to ruin what I kind of already have, because I feel like it would just ruin the whole series for me. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of the hype stuff, I don't know about what people, like the big overbearing hype, like the Star Wars like hype that's like commercials and the actual people who put the movie out trying to get people excited so that way they want to go see it. But I do know that when people constantly are telling me, this is great, you're gonna love it, this is great, you're gonna love it. This happened with me with Les Mis when it came out. Is everybody was like, it is such a phenomenal thing. And I was like, oh boy, I'm so excited to see this amazing thing. And I was so excited. But Les Mis, I feel like would have been so much better if people had just been like, it's a musical, you can go if you want. Because then instead of having like this super high bar that it suddenly had to like reach for it, I wouldn't have had any expectations and it would have been good the way it was. And that happens with me with books a lot. People will tell me that like a certain book is just amazing and it's so good, and I tell them to stop telling me that or else I'm not going to read it, because I'm going to compare it to the most amazing thing I ever read when I first started like really reading novels in like 7th grade, when nothing could get better than what I was reading, and it just ruins it.
Does hype purposely make us disappointed? Is that like advertisers and marketing people, like, do they purposely make hype disappointing? Because then we talk more about it.
Oh, I think they just want money. They just want to advertise, and if they get people excited, people will talk about it for them.
Well, that really works to the advantage of even something like the To Kill a Mockingbird prequel, which came out, which wasn't really a prequel. It was
the other
original
book that the author wrote.
It was Harper Lee's original draft for a book she was writing. That's eventually her editor was like, "Hey, I like this little flashback section. You should make a book about that." So she ended up making To Kill a Mockingbird off of that little flashback. But it was being pitched as like this prequel. So you look at someone like Atticus Finch, who is like, you know, this big hero in To Kill a Mockingbird, and now all of a sudden you read this. Actually, technically, I think it takes place. It's a sequel. It takes place like 20 years later or something like that. And Atticus Finch is like this huge racist, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, how could she do that to the character?" And it was like, that she didn't. That was her original book, and she completely changed everything. You know. So again, I think that hype really built into that.
I feel like a lot of it is just your expectations. When you said like hanging out with friends, I'm excited to be hanging out with friends. I wouldn't call it hype, because most of the time when I come to hang out, I don't have this super high bar, which doesn't mean that I don't expect we're not gonna have a good time. It's that I'm coming over and we're gonna do something. You know, in this case, we're doing a podcast. Sometimes we watch a movie. Sometimes we're gonna go somewhere and do something else. And since I don't have this immediate expectation there already about what the experience is going to be, it's always just a really chill, good time, which is, I think, why it's such a good time. If every time we hung out, Joe was like, "We're gonna have the greatest time you've ever had in your whole life," I would probably stop hanging out with him.
He does kind of act that way, so.
But he doesn't say that. Don't start saying that.
I won't.
Gee willikers, Jesse. The other day when I was hiking up my pants past my belly button, I was thinking to myself, wowzers, wouldn't it be nice to have a tandem bicycle?
I've always wanted a tandem bicycle for real, though.
Oh,
those things are cool.
Oh no.
Willikers, Jesse, you got me on a good path.
I feel like a lot of it's expectation, is what I'm saying. When you have an active expectation of something, that's when it can start. That's when you can start being let down.
Well, that's why I think it's so special when something actually lives up to a hype, because it's so rare. Because
I don't think I've ever experienced a mega hype where anything has lived up to it. Because as soon as somebody starts getting me pumped about it, it's never as good as my brain tells me it's going to be, because I'm expecting it to be amazing.
The new Kendrick Lamar album, To Pimp a Butterfly, matched the hype for me.
There you go. See, that was a genuinely great album.
That made me have so many feels I cannot even enunciate.
Whereas the new Front Bottoms album, I've
heard bad reviews about that.
So
I've heard bad reviews about
There's
it. I'm
like
not even a fan of them.
a couple of good songs, and then oh no.
That's how I felt about. I felt about that for a couple movies. Most recently, probably Mad Max, which I thought.
Yeah,
was
I've heard a lot of
a
good things
great
about
deal
it,
of
but I
fun.
haven't seen
I'm not
it.
gonna hype it up though. See, I'm not gonna.
There you go. So
I'm
maybe I'll still watch it.
I'm gonna say I liked it. I thought it was very good, and I had a good time. And I was for the longest time Pixar. I love Pixar. I've mentioned this a million times. Pixar was that thing for me. But I think the thing to go with what you were saying though, like I think the movie that really affected me the most was probably WALL-E, and that was the one I had probably done the least research on ahead of time. So like hearing all this stuff ahead of time, so I tried to kind of take this tactic with their most recent one where I've just been trying to stay out. So I'm hoping maybe it will have a similar experience, but I think it also helps that WALL-E I think is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. So
And I think a lot of it too is the surprise factor. When you're surprised that something is as good as you expect it to be, or when you're walking down the street and you find a $20 bill, like you weren't expecting a $20 bill. There wasn't anything in your brain telling you there's going to be a $20 bill. So like when you find it, it's exciting. So when you can find a gem that you weren't expecting, that nobody was hyping, that it's a really exciting thing because it was unexpected.
And no offense, but I feel like you've done that a little bit with Steven Universe, which I have started watching.
I really like it.
And I enjoy it. But the way that you and everybody I know talk
But
about
you're not even into it yet.
That's true.
And I quote.
But now you're building up hype even more, Amber.
And I quote, "Hey guys, there's this show that is just so amazing, like I can't even. Here's the thing.
You're not quoting.
Jesse, I was literally sitting on the couch for half a day watching Steven Universe, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where'd the time go?
I have never done that before.
I watch Steven Universe mostly.
You're not quoting. That's not
End
what you're
quote.
doing right
End
now.
quote.
You're lying. Steven Universe is really good. You should watch it.
I do like it so far, though.
Okay.
I do.
I'm glad I'm not letting you down yet. Like I inevitably will.
That's inevitable, though. Everybody lets down
Cut my
everybody.
life into pieces.
No.
That's what we learned
This
today.
is
Everybody
my
lets
last
down
resort.
everybody.
Oh, we have to recap.
Yes. So I think, I guess the thing I learned was that hype is better when you tone it down a little bit because it's very rare, far and few between. Although Amber never really mentioned anything that lived up to hype for her. Although I think you said you never had that experience.
Except for Steven Universe.
Nobody's hyped Steven Universe though. I saw some GIFs on Tumblr and that's like it. I don't count Tumblr as hype. I just don't. Is it my turn?
Yes.
The moral of the story is touch your boobs, but not too much.
The moral of my story of young Ahmed Mohamed is
Touch your boobs, but not too much.
No, that was
no,
mine.
that would be like really that would be insensitive. In this case, really insensitive. It would be weigh out your options, but choose what's best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's good.
Anyway.
All right. Ultimately, can you not?
Can you not?
Can you just no?